Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the MCU Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing the 35th film to be released as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Captain America, Brave New World. Now, before we get to talking about this current Captain America movie, I want to look back at all the other solo Captain America movies in the MCU. Of course, starting with The First Avenger, a film that I thought was pretty good. Not great, but it was good for what it was. Definitely the first half of the movie was better than the second half, but overall, it did its job, told the origin of Captain America, and helped kind of explain how he was in the modern day, and would eventually go on to lead the Avengers. Then you had its sequel, The Winter Soldier, which I thought was just not only a great sequel, but a great movie altogether, with great action, a very compelling and twisted story, great writing and arcs for all its main characters, all compounded together, with an honestly interesting, albeit kind of tacked on, plot about Captain America trying to save his friend who desperately needed his help. And then finally, there's Captain America Civil War, an adaptation of one of Marvel's most morally gray events, and honestly, one of the most bittersweet MCU films to come out. That ultimately had some, well, not as good as the Winter Soldier, definitely still had a lot going for it that helped make it very compelling, with a lot of twisted and conflicting moralities, both two different sides, both believing in their cause, but neither truly evil, and ultimately all of it coming together when everything just kind of falls apart by the end. Admittedly, it still had its flaws by trying to tack on a sappy, happy ending at the end, but on the whole, Civil War definitely felt like a fantastic movie. So, yeah, with all that in mind, Brave New World kind of had some big shoes to fill, as not only was it the latest Captain America movie to be released after Endgame, but it was also the first Captain America movie to not star Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, but rather Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, formerly the Falcon, currently the new Captain America. Now, the thing is, when Anthony Mackie was pressed to become the new Captain America, well, let's just say there was some pushback. There were plenty of people who did not think that he should have been the new Captain America. Some because they were Steve purists, others because they were just plain racist. Yeah, I'm not even going to dance around that. That was actually one of the reasons why. And as a result, there was plenty of pushback to him becoming the new Star-Spangled Man with a plan. Of course, Sam Wilson definitely had his share of defenders, which, you know what, good on him. So, the fact that he was getting pegged to become the new Captain America was definitely a curious sight. And it made me wonder how exactly he'd be able to take on the transition from Falcon to Captain America. As such, I was honestly a little interested in this movie, and the advertising for it definitely made me excited for what they were going to do, albeit I was a little cautious at the same time, considering all the controversy that was boiling up about this movie. And, well, let's just say critical reception to this film wasn't very good. It did not do well with critics before its premiere, and as a result, it kind of made me a little bit more cautious going in. But with that said, what critics tend to think is not always what the audience thinks, and there have been plenty of times when I have gone against the status quo and still praised an MCU movie even though everybody else hated it. Hell, I liked Thor: Love and Thunder. It's probably not a very good movie, but I liked it for what it did right. So hey, maybe I'd like this one too. You never know. So, does Brave New World manage to entertain me and actually fulfill a role as a brand new Captain America movie? Well, let's take a look at it and find out. Now, just a heads up. In preparation for this movie, I did go and see Falcon and the Winter Soldier, finally. And as a result, there will be a couple times when I do reference events from that show, as, well, obviously, they do come back and play a part in this movie. Secondly, I took notes when I watched the movie for this vlog, so there may be one or two times when I open this up, peruse through, and just to try and remind myself of things that went on in the movie, or just to look back at what I thought about things. And finally, spoilers are inbound, people. By the time that I'm doing this vlog, the film has been out in theaters for 2 weeks. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to go in spoiled, turn away now, because I'm spoiling the movie rotten. Are we good? Alright, so, with all that out of the way, let's get to our long-ass plot summary. And the film actually begins with General Ross being elected the new President of the United States. Or rather, Harrison Ford being elected the new President of the United States. Yeah, I gotta bring this elephant up. So, sadly, the original actor who played Harrison Ross died in between movies, and as a result, rather than killing off General Ross like they did with T'Challa, Marvel decided to basically just recast the role, with Harrison Ford taking up the mantle from now on. And if I'm being honest, while it is a little strange to see him as the new General Ross, I kind of grew to accept the change, because honestly, I think Harrison Ford turned in a good performance, and I think he's a good substitute, so I'll give him that. So it sucks how we had to get him at all, so what can you do? But anyway, back to the plot summary. General Ross is now the President of the United States, and he is basically basing his entire presidency on unity, companionship, reuniting the world after everything that went to hell and during the events of Endgame. Of course, General Ross still has his fair share of critics, because, well, it's General fucking Ross. This is the guy who has a personal beef with every superhero in the MCU, especially the Hulk. And as a result, his reputation of butting heads with the costume crowd is well known by everybody, including the media, who bring it up after he was elected president. And apparently, after the events of the Incredible Hulk, General Ross kind of had a freak out that eventually resulted in him damaging government property. It was not very well received, although he did manage to regain some credibility points, as after that incident, he managed to bring in the mastermind behind the abomination. So, yeah, that's a bit strange. But either way, with General Ross as the new president, basically he promises to try and make a better world, a greater world. And while current Captain America, Sam Wilson, is kind of dubious about General Ross's intentions, he basically isn't going to say anything, because at this point, there is one thing about him and General Ross that he and General Ross agree on, that ultimately, if they want to reunite the country and make it better, then they need to stand as a united front and kind of put the past behind them, though not completely. And speaking of, yeah, as I've mentioned several times before now, Sam Wilson is the new Captain America. Hold on one second. Sorry about that, puppy came in, but yeah, like I said, Sam Wilson, new Captain America. Now, I'm sure everyone watching this video is thinking the same thing right now. Well, no shit, Sam. That was advertised in everything for this movie, and you just talked about how he was the new Captain America prior to this point in the video. So why are you making a big deal about it now? Well, that's because, well, there's no real introduction to him becoming Captain America in the movie. He just starts out the film as the new Star-Spangled Man. Why? Well, watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, it was actually at the end of that series that Sam Wilson officially became the new Captain America. In fact, the whole point of the series was basically about him trying to come into the role and actually accept that he was supposed to be the next Captain America. And I'm not going to get into my thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, except for the fact that I thought it was alright. So, at the very least, yeah, if you want to know when he became Captain America, go watch that. Point is, though, he starts out the movie already bearing the shield, and, well, he's already doing work as Captain America, as 6 months after General Ross was sworn in as the president, we see him in the middle of a mission as he and a group of soldiers are sent out to a church in Mexico, because apparently a group of terrorists have stolen this package of something from the Japanese, and as such, Captain America wants to go in, get the package, save the hostages, because, well, they're stationed in a church that does have people in it, and basically ensure that no international incidents occur so America can give this package back to their Japanese allies. As such, Sam goes in and, well, he really does not know what the word subtlety is, because he literally just dives right into the courtyard of the church and gets the attention of all the terrorists. And if I can give another compliment to the movie, I love Sam Wilson's first Captain America outfit. Yeah, throughout the movie, he wears 2 different versions of the outfit, but the first one, in my opinion, is the best. It's the outfit that he ended Falcon the Winter Soldier with, and in my opinion, I like it the most, as it's primarily a mix of blue and white, and it looks perfect. It feels similar enough to the original Captain America costume that you can recognize it with iconography alone, but it's more bright and colorful, stands out more, and I think it's just a better suit altogether. Plus, just like how I'm a sucker for red and black, white and blue kind of has a similar effect on me, so I think the colors work well. Plus, we do see more of the suit's benefits, as while Sam Wilson may have abandoned his moniker as the Falcon, he didn't give up the wings, as his Captain America suit does still have them, and guess what? They're vibranium wings, as this particular Captain America costume was supplied by the Wakandans, and as such, anytime someone tries shooting at Cap, he basically can just throw up his wings and the vibranium absorbs it and then redirects the kinetic energy out at all their opponents, much like with the original Black Panther costume. It's honestly really damn cool. Plus, he also has some extra allies in the form of these little robots that he calls Red Wing. It's, again, pretty damn cool. Either way, though, Cap just rushes in and just starts laying waste to the terrorists, and after he takes out everyone in the courtyard, he has one of his Red Wings scan the building to see if he can find where the hostages are. However, upon doing that, one of his help, so to speak, a man by the name of Joaquin, says he was able to identify who the leader of these terrorists are, as it's apparently a man named Sidewinder, that's his code name, who is apparently the head of a criminal organization known as Serpent. So it's kind of weird that Serpent was ordered to bring this stuff here, as the thing is, they were here to sell whatever this package was to an unknown buyer who apparently never showed up. So that is obviously Sidewinder's a little pissed that he's essentially wasting his time for someone that's not even going to show up. Either way, though, Cap makes it his priority to go and save the hostages while the people behind the scenes are trying to tell him, no, you got to secure the package. But since Sam is pretty much Cap, he's going to prioritize saving the innocents over the sanctity of this stupid package. Plus, well, they got other soldiers for that, so those other soldiers are able to deal with them. Either way, Cap manages to sneak into the church, and while he does end up dealing with more of the people from Serpent, he does manage to save the hostages. Though unfortunately, some of the people from Serpent do manage to get away with the package. Thankfully, though, that's where Joaquin comes in, as while he's technically the guy in the chair for Sam Wilson, he does want to get in on the action, and, well, he's kind of co-opted some of Sam's old tech. For you see, if Sam Wilson is the new Captain America, that means the title of Falcon's kind of out there for the taking. And as a result, Joaquin has pretty much managed to, well, for lack of a better term, appropriate some of Sam Wilson's old gear, and is now trying to make a name for himself as the new Falcon. Something that Sam Wilson isn't against, but he's also not letting him take the name just yet. But either way, he manages to get onto the battlefield just as the people from Serpent try getting away, and he does manage to take out the soldiers who are getting away with the package, and, well, secure said package. And as for Sam, he manages to find the head of Serpent, again, Sidewinder, before he can actually engage him with battle. One of the bigger grunts of Serpent comes in and ends up duking it out with Cap. And thankfully, though, while Cap does get his ass beat quite a few times and even unfortunately gets his suit slashed, he does manage to take him down, though at the cost of losing Sidewinder, who is more than pissed about that he got his time wasted, and so he makes it his mission to try and find whoever the buyer is and make them pay. Either way, though, the mission is still technically a success. The hostages are all safe, the package has been secured, basically, the good guys seem to have won out, so hey, everything's all good. And as such, once everything is said and done, Cap does kind of do some reconnaissance, and he finds it weird that Serpent would be asked to meet the buyer in this church, because the thing is, it's a public church. It's a wide open area. There is no tactical advantage to meeting whoever the buyer is here. So, in essence, Cap thinks that this is all a load. That's whoever this buyer is intentionally wanted the Serpent to be found so that Cap would be called onto the scene, which does make Sam wonder what the heck's going to happen from here on out. But for ultimately, that's an investigation for another day, as Sam meets back up with Joaquin, and Joaquin is trying to get some pointers from Sam, and while Sam is, again, like I said, kind of reluctant to have Joaquin take on the mantle of Captain America, he is still happy for the help that he received, though Joaquin does want to get a few extra training tips in. And as such, Sam is happy to oblige, and he knows the perfect teacher, though he kind of warns Joaquin that whoever this teacher is, he's gonna be a bit of a grump. Hold on one second. Sorry, again, puppy stuff. But yeah, either way, we then cut to later as we cut to a gym, and we see who this teacher is. And this is where I need to talk to you about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier again. For you see, during the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam Wilson met what is essentially the lost Captain America. You see, at some point between when Captain America was frozen and eventually came out in the modern day, the American government did try their hand at making more super soldier serums, which we have seen at various points throughout the series, and we've seen the fruits of other countries' labors of that with both the Winter Soldier and the Red Guardian. But the thing is, America at one point did manage to perfect the Super Soldier Serum, and the recipient of that Super Soldier Serum was an African-American soldier by the name of Osiah Bradley, who was one of the only test subjects who took the sample of the formula and who managed to come out on top with enhanced physique, enhanced strength, enhanced durability, and just all the stuff that you would associate with Captain America. So why isn't he remembered in the MCU? Well, put simply, he got scrubbed. While he did have a few successful missions with his super soldier status, even at one point coming toe to toe with the Winter Soldier and actually whooping his ass, unfortunately, he went to prison. As at one point, Oziah's unit got captured by enemy forces, and going against his orders, he went in to go and save them. And while he was successful, well, he still defied his superiors and brushed into enemy territory despite being told not to. And as a result, he was locked away for years and turned into a test subject, as the government pretty much just poked and prodded at him to see why the super soldier serum worked for him and not with other people. And as a result, well, his life was kind of shitty for the longest time. And the only reason that he's able to even stand out in the middle of hold on one second. Sorry, I was getting tongue-tied. But yeah, the only reason that Oziah was able to even stand out as a free man is because one of the nurses that was watching over him actually felt sorry for him, and so she helped him slip out and faked his death. And as a result, he was able to run away and he managed to start a family, but let's just say being locked up for several decades kind of leaves a man bitter and angry at the country that he swore to serve, and as a result, he pretty much just thinks the American government could go fuck themselves. And he was even one of the people that thought that Sam Wilson would not be able to make a good Captain America because, well, let's be honest here, our country can be a bit racist. But ultimately, Sam did stand up for him, and when Sam did take on the mantle as the new Captain America, he did kind of pull a few strings to make sure that Oziah got the recognition he deserved. And as a result, all charges against him were dropped. He can now step out into the sunlight and be acknowledged for all of the good that he did for America. And as a result, he and Sam have pretty much been friends ever since. And as such, Sam brings Joaquin to be trained by Oziah, and Oziah is not planning to give Joaquin even a minute, although he first directs his attention to Sam as they get into a bit of a sparring match. However, the sparring match is kind of put on hold as, well, Cap gets a call from, well, the president, who wants to invite Sam and subsequently Joaquin to a press conference, so to speak. Well, not really a press conference. Hold on one second. Sorry, it was a peace summit, and well, the thing is, when Oziah hears that Sam is answering directly to the president, he's not happy about it because, again, it's General Ross. The dude is an asshole and kind of represents everything about the government that Oziah hates. But again, Sam talks about how they need to stand a united front, especially in this time, and especially in these times. And yeah, Sam agrees with Oziah. It's General Ross. He doesn't trust him as far as he can throw him, but he's the president now, and he at least has to respect the authority, even if he doesn't respect the man. But the thing is, he does kind of try and get Oziah on his side a bit, because it turns out that Sam agreed to come to the Peace Summit, but only if he and Joaquin could bring Oziah. And as a result, Oziah does at least kind of acknowledge this attempt from Sam to kind of help to try and get him more in the limelight, and he does accept the invitation. And as a result, Sam, Joaquin, and Oziah end up riding in a limo straight to the White House, in which they're greeted by the press. They meet up with several government officials. They take a selfie with each other. It's all good. And while Joaquin and Oziah are just kind of doing their own thing, Sam is called to go talk to General Ross. And again, they even have a little tongue-in-cheek moment where Sam talks about how he's kind of trying to get used to the new look for Ross. I don't know, it's kind of funny. But either way, the part of the reason why General Ross wanted to invite Sam here wasn't just because he wanted to acknowledge what Sam and Joaquin did in securing the package. Because that thing is, the package that they captured is kind of important for why this peace summit was even called at all. You see, the thing is, General Ross wants to restart the Avengers, and he wants Sam's help to do it. And, of course, Sam's a little dubious with this initiative because, again, it's General fucking Ross. The dude has come to blows with many costumed weirdos in the past, and he has made his opinions on superheroes very clear. He does not see them well. Well, apparently General Ross has kind of had a change of heart, as at this point, he is the President of the United States, and he has to acknowledge that a good chunk of the people that he's now supposed to be serving, well, they wouldn't be around if it wasn't for the Avengers. If it wasn't for people like Sam Wilson, or wasn't so ultimately, while he may not have liked it in the past, even he can't deny the good the Avengers have done and what they mean to people. So he thinks that ultimately the Avengers are a necessity, and he wants Sam Wilson to help jumpstart them. Something that Sam is a little dubious about, because if they do want to jumpstart the Avengers again, they would be working directly under Ross, something that the original Captain America objected to with the Sokovia Accords. But Ross tells Sam that he doesn't have to give him an answer right away. They can think about it for a while, but he does hope that Sam will at least consider the offer. Either way, with everything done, they go outside, they meet with the Prime Minister of Japan named Prime Minister Ozaki, who apparently goes way back with General Ross, and so Sam meets back up with Joaquin and Ozaya, and the three of them end up going into this main meeting room where the Peace Summit's going to be taking place. And as such, once everything is said and done, we learn exactly what this Peace Summit is about. So, remember Eternals? Yeah, remember how at the end of that movie, the celestial Tiamat almost emerged from the earth and only was stopped because Cersei was able to transmute his entire body into some kind of giant stone thing? Well, we're finally getting acknowledgement about that in the rest of the MCU. Because you see, the thing is, when a giant celestial being begins rising up out of the Earth's core, some people are gonna notice it, i.e. all the governments of the world. Everybody pretty much saw the celestial emerging from the Indian Ocean, and all of them wanted to get a piece of it and see what the hell was going on. As a result, several governments and across several countries set up facilities specifically to mine what was left of the celestial. And what they found was very surprising. A new form of metal. A metal strong and abundant, and basically even more durable than even vibranium. And unlike vibranium, it isn't being controlled by an isolationist nation. Rather, this is something brand new, something amazing, something that could change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is adamantium. And Ross pretty much, the reason why General Ross has been pushed for the summit, well, he wants to sign a peace treaty with all the other nations of the world because, well, he doesn't want everyone fighting over it. With the abundance of adamantium located within Tiamat's, well, for lack of a better term, corpse, he believes that if everyone signs a treaty and agrees to work together peacefully, then they can distribute the adamantium across the entire planet. And with the adamantium, they could make great strides, and they can make some great technological strides in both weapons, medical care, in so many areas across the globe. And so that's why. And so General Ross more than wants to make this entire conference go off without a hitch. And part of which leads me back to the package that the people from Serpent had stolen and were subsequently trying to sell off, because it turns out that package contained a chunk of adamantium that was being mined by the Japanese. So, of course, it was a high priority getting that shit back so that they could return it to its rightful owners, which, of course, also kind of which does end up helping in the grand scheme of things. As such, everything does seem to be going fine for this whole conference, as Ross is once again getting everyone on his side and talking about the benefits if they all work together to evenly distribute the adamantium. But suddenly, over the speakers of the White House, a song begins playing. A song called Mr. Blue. And the instant the song plays, well, let's just say all hell breaks loose as Ozaya ends up getting out from his seat, and one of the Secret Service tries to get him to sit back down. He ends up knocking the Secret Service agent down, steals his gun, and then immediately opens fire on General Ross. And the only reason that General Ross isn't killed is because, one, Ozaya misses, and two, there was a glass plate in front of General Ross because, well, that was how he was doing his display. And it's not just Ozaya that's doing this, as 4 other people at the summit immediately pull out weapons and start opening fire as well, just leading to mass pandemonium. As such, in the midst of all the chaos, Ozaya manages to run away from Secret Service agents, and Sam, obviously wondering what the hell is going on, immediately chases after him. I think he also does help take care of the other agents, but don't quote me on that. Again, I was taking notes, so I didn't get to see all the details. But point is, Ozaya makes a run for it, and of course, Sam chases after him. And Ozaya ends up running out of the White House, and he runs out into the middle of a fountain/courtyard, but as Ozaya is surrounded by police and Secret Service agents, Sam manages to catch up to him, And Ozaya suddenly seems confused, and he asks Sam, where the hell... Hold on a second. Sorry about that, popcorn kernel. But yeah, Ozaya asks Sam where the hell is he and what's going on. As, yeah, he has no idea what the heck is happening. Well, Sam of course, tells him that he needs to turn himself in, which Ozai is against, because again, locked up for several decades, doesn't want to go back in, but Sam tells him that at this point, if he doesn't turn himself in, it's going to get a lot worse, and so Ozai reluctantly complies as he's arrested once again and put on lockup. Well, let's just say Sam wants to know what the heck's going on. As such, he goes to Ross and he petitions to wanting to investigate why Ozai went off the handle. Because the thing is, he knows Ozai. And while Ozai may be a bit of a grumpy old fart, he's not a bad guy. He wouldn't just go crazy and shoot up the president. Something that the head of Ross's security, a woman by the name of Ruth, hold on, I wrote her name down, so I'm gonna go look it up. Her name is Ruth Batsaroff, who says that would be possible since, well, he would have a grudge against the United States for everything that happened to him. Well, General Ross ultimately tells Sam that he doesn't want him anywhere near this case. After all, he and Ozai are friends, and so he thinks that it'd be a conflict of interest for Sam to be involved in this case at all. Plus, he thinks the PR of Sam Wilson defending a guy who tried to shoot at the president would not be a good thing for Captain America. So ultimately, Sam is basically given the heave-ho and told to stay out of this. Sam probably goes, fuck that, as he still wants to do his investigation. As such, he goes to see Ozai in prison, and while Ozai also doesn't want Sam involved in this at all, because he does agree with Ross that if Sam got anywhere near this case, it could damage his reputation as Captain America, he does at least comply with what Sam asks, as Sam asks him to recall everything that happened that night. And he basically just recounts everything that happened, that he went to go pick up his new suit, that he and Joaquin and Sam all went to the White House, they took that selfie, but he also mentions that at one point he was having trouble with his phone, though he doesn't know why. Either way, that's all the information he's able to give Sam before he storms off, telling Sam to just leave him alone. Either way, after visiting with Ozai, Sam ends up calling Joaquin and asks Joaquin to both look into Ruth, because, well, he wants to know everything about her, and also possibly try and find a lead on what Ozai said regarding his phone being weird. However, it's in the middle of this call when Sam kind of ends up flying right into the deep end of the pool, as guess who should show up but Sidewinder, who immediately opens fire on Sam's truck, resulting in the vehicle going boom, but Sam coming out in no problem as he immediately confronts Sidewinder in battle and just knocks him aside, to the point where they get into a tussle, which leads them ending up in a junkyard, where Sam is thankfully able to, well, take down Sidewinder as he uses his environment to his advantage and beats him, as at this point Sam doesn't have his Captain America gear on him. But the thing is, Sam is able to properly deduce that if Sidewinder was going after him, then he most likely found the buyer, since the last time that he saw him, Sidewinder said he was going to get payback on the guy. So the fact that he's now changed targets means that he probably did meet with the guy, and the buyer pretty much told Sidewinder, take out Captain America and I'll pay you double. Which Sidewinder confirms, but he also says that he would have done the job for free because, hey, who gets an opportunity to kill Captain America anymore? But yeah, when Sidewinder is taken down, a phone he had on him rings, and when Cap goes to pick it up and see who it is, he does end up hearing the voice of whoever this buyer is. And so when Sam hears this guy, the buyer just tells him that he's happy for what Sam did, but things are going to get a lot worse, and Sam's not going to like it. As such, with Sidewinder taken care of and eventually handed over to the authorities, Sam goes to try and meet back up with Joaquin to try and get answers. In the meantime, back with General Ross, it is very abundantly clear that he is not doing well, as after the incident at the White House, all the other nations are kind of doubting whether or not it's a good idea to sign the treaty that he's pulling for. As Ross is on a video call with representatives from both Paris and New Delhi, who both are pretty much calling him out, saying, "Well, you weren't protected in your own home, and as far as we can tell, it looks like Japan isn't with us, and we kind of want Japan support before we even go through with this." this. General Ross once again tries to assure them that he wants the treaty to go off without a hitch. The world needs this treaty, and so ultimately the representatives of New Delhi and Paris do give Ross some leniency, but they make it clear that if things don't go well with this treaty, then there is not going to be a treaty and there is not going to be any peace. It's pretty much going to be every man for himself when it comes to the adamantium. So yeah, Ross kind of has a lot of pressure going on him. As such, Ross decides that he does need to go and talk to the people of Japan, or at least with the Prime Minister Ozaki, because he needs to get him back on his side if he wants the treaty to go through. And with everything going to hell, he kind of needs a win right now. But as everything is going on, Joaquin and Ruth end up pulling up the security footage before the events of the shootout, and he does manage to find some security footage of Ozaya prior to that big meeting where Ross was trying to talk about the adamantium. And sure enough, at one point before the meeting, Ozaya was looking at his phone, and something on the phone flashed in his face, which did confuse Joaquin. But as he looked through more of the security footage, he found that all the other shooters had similar incidences. All of them were on their phone, but then something flashed in their face. Something that even Ruth notices as she looks through the security footage on her end and wants to try and properly investigate. Unfortunately, though, when she does go to properly investigate, well, it turns out that her leads kind of go dry, as when she goes into the facility where they're keeping all the shooters, including Ozaya, one of the security guards seems to go rogue as he opens up the cell containing the 4 other shooters, and he just shoots them all down dead. And when Ruth goes up to this guy and wants to know what the hell he's doing, well, he ends up pulling the gun on himself and shoots himself in the head. And the only noise that Ruth can hear from him is the song Mr. Blue playing over his communicator. So, yeah, clearly something shady is going on, and it unfortunately has to do with General Ross. The thing is, while he's going off to try and do his own thing, hold on one second. Sorry, I needed to collect my thoughts. But yeah, as Ross is heading to Japan in order to talk with Prime Minister Ozaki, he is getting more updates on what the heck is going on. Now, the thing is, when Joaquin did end up finding the footage about what happened with Ozaya, he was able to meet back up with Sam, and Sam wound up giving him the phone that he got off of Sidewinder. And so Sam asked Joaquin to track the phone and see where the last call came from, and it ends up leading them to a secluded base in the middle of nowhere called Camp Echo 1. A pretty much dead zone in terms of everything, as it's out of the way of all government facilities. There's too much woods and so forth to keep you from seeing from above. There are no signals going in or out. Basically, it's just a black site. Anyone goes there, there's a good chance they're not coming back. So whoever is behind all of this is located at Camp Echo 1. And the thing is, General Ross knows who is there. Because the thing is, after the events of after the big shootout, he called Camp Echo 1 and asked the guy in charge of Camp Echo 1 if the prisoner was still there. And the guy confirmed that the prisoner was still there, that he had eyes on him, so that did seem to assure Ross. But as Ross is flying to Japan, he does end up calling Camp Echo 1 to see if anything is going wrong, which is kind of made even worse when I think he is told by either Ruth or his assistant, who I think is Sam's sister, but don't quote me on that, who basically let him know about Sam and Joaquin. Because the thing is, after Sam and Joaquin were able to track the cell phone signal back to Camp Echo 1, Sam immediately wanted to go out there and find out whoever this buyer is, as clearly the buyer was the guy that called him. And well, since Ross wants Sam off of this, he ordered to have a team sent out there to try and capture them so they wouldn't be involved. But yeah, he's still clearly paranoid because the head of Camp Echo 1 calls Ross, and he says that he's getting ready to move the prisoner before said prisoner ends up shooting this general in the head, and then immediately picks up the phone to talk to Ross. And yeah, this guy has plenty of beef with General Ross, as apparently Ross used him for something. Whatever that something was, we don't know yet, But apparently, this prisoner was promised his freedom from Camp Echo One. Again, hold on a second. Again, sorry for all the pausing. That's a bit of soda went down the wrong tube. But either way, this prisoner was promised that he'd get freedom from Camp Echo One if he cooperated with Ross, and well, he cooperated, and he's still at Camp Echo 1. He wanted his freedom, and Ross did not provide it. Of course, Ross tries to excuse himself and try and give explanations for why he didn't let this guy go, that he needed him, he tried to do his best, yada yada. Point is, this guy, whoever this prisoner is, he's not having any of that shit, and he's pretty much just telling Ross that he's going to tear down everything that he's built. He's going to destroy his legacy, and by the time he's done, everyone will see Ross for the monster he is, including his daughter, who Ross has been trying to reconnect with and sadly failing. As such, he gets hung up, and Ross, in terror, ends up calling Ruth and tells her that she needs to get down to Camp Echo 1 as quickly as possible. But either way, going back to Sam and Joaquin, they manage to get to Camp Echo 1, and they find that the place is surrounded by guards and barbed wire, but thankfully through the use of expertise and Sam's Falcon / Captain America gear, they're able to get in and they manage to sneak inside the building. And as they go further in, they do admit it does look a bit like a prison, but they can't find any other prisoners. But at the center of this place is a lab. And upon getting to said lab, they start looking around to see if they can find any clues as to who the buyer of the adamantium was. And as they continue looking around, well, they get a name as they find a little room behind the lab. And it's basically a file room, as it contains files on all these government officials, including Uzziah Bradley, and a plaque belonging to one Dr. Samuel Stearns, a.k.a. Mr. Blue from The Incredible Hulk. Yes, we are getting that loose plot thread finally wrapped up. And, well, you see, the thing is, Samuel Stearns was basically locked up here, but what he was doing here is a mystery to Sam. Although, whatever it is, it has to do with General Ross, which we already know, but we now get a bit more details, as Sam managed to find a file on General Ross, and, well, the file is talking about Ross's medical history and brings up these pills that we saw General Ross taking at earlier points in the movie. It's saying take 3 a day, and there are even samples of the pills right there, which does confuse Sam and makes him wonder what the heck's going on, resulting in him taking all the pills with him. In the meantime, back with Ross, he ends up meeting with Prime Minister Ozaki in Japan, and he tries to once again try and rectify everything so that they can get this treaty signed and thus, evenly distribute the adamantium. But at this point, the Prime Minister doesn't want to talk to Ross at all because, well, they looked into that bit of stolen adamantium that Serpent got their hands on, and it turns out, apparently, it was the Americans themselves who paid to have it stolen. Something that General Ross is immediately denying, saying, "No, we didn't do that. Why would you say that? Why would we return it?" But no, apparently the information has been checked and verified. So yeah, it's looking like that General Ross set up this fake theft to try and ingratiate himself with the Prime Minister of Japan. And so as a result, while Ross is still trying to deny it, even at one point calling the Prime Minister a fool, not a good choice when you're trying to get this guy on your side, end result is that the Prime Minister of Japan wants nothing to do with Ross and pretty much tells him to go shove it. And as a result, Ross is kind of sent off with his tail between his legs, much to his own chagrin. As such, in the meantime, back with our heroes, as Sam and Joaquin are going through more of Samuel Stearns' files, they do end up finding more details on what he's been doing. As it turns out, yeah, Samuel Stearns is the one behind the assassination attempt, as he was actually able to set up a program that would be able to be digitally distributed to people. Basically, it's some kind of signal that is basically flashed into the human brain via optics. And what activates the signal and triggers whatever hypnotic command was located within the data is a song called, well, Mr. Blue. Kind of well, it kind of makes sense considering who's sending the signal. But point is, until the human brain hears the song, they are completely unaware that they've had this stuff thrown into their brain. Which I'm guessing part of the reason is that the brain will will literally try covering up whatever happened with a false memory. Like when Oziah mentioned that he had been having trouble with his phone. So clearly whatever this is, it's kind of dangerous, and that means that that Samuel Stearns could have sleeper agents everywhere, because anybody could have gotten this signal, and all it would take is for them to hear that song, and they would be set off. But as they're looking through more of Samuel Stearns' research, they end up finding an old video of him lecturing when he was still a professor. And in the neighboring room to his lab, they hear someone say, "I was a bit of a looker back then, wasn't I?" Maybe not that exact dialogue, but yeah, it's clear that Sam and Joaquin are not alone, as they end up stepping out of the lab, and we finally manage to see Samuel Stearns. Or, to put it another way, we finally get the actual official MCU debut of Hulk villain, the Leader. And I'll give credit where it's due, he looks fucked up. Like, the thing is, as it's explained later in the movie what happened to Samuel Stearns after the events of The Incredible Hulk. You see, the thing is, remember how during The Incredible Hulk, a drop of Bruce's blood wound up falling onto an open wound on Stearns' forehead, which started to cause it to bulge and grow? Well, the thing is, the radiation from the Hulk blood continued spreading throughout his system. And that bulging we saw, well, if you know anything about the Leader, you know that it didn't make him stronger, it made him smarter. But the thing is, General Ross was made aware of this. And then the thing is, remember how earlier I said how General Ross was able to kind of recover his reputation after what happened with the Abomination by catching the man behind the Abomination? Well, unfortunately, that man was Samuel Stearns. As considering everything that happened in that movie, someone had to take the fall for all the crap. And unfortunately, that man was Samuel Stearns. However, General Ross also saw an opportunity with Samuel Stearns, and so he wanted bringing him in, and rather than trying to expunge the gamma from Stearns' system, he instead upped the dosage, giving him more and more gamma to try and improve his already augmented brain power. And from there, he basically had Dr. Stearns working for him and just doing all of his work behind the scenes. Why? Because Ross wanted to be president, and how he was able to get Stearns to cooperate with him was that he promised Stearns that if he played cards with him and did everything he was supposed to, then Ross would guarantee his freedom. Well, guess what? General Ross didn't keep his end of the bargain, so Stearns is right pissed. Something that even he admits he saw coming, because with his augmented brain power, he is able to see the probabilities of certain things happening. But as he kind of admits later in the movie, there are things that even he can't account for. Let me put it this way: when one of the mind-controlled soldiers shot up four of the shooters from the failed assassination attempt, that was not just an attempt to try and to tie up any loose ends and cover things up. No, that was also an attempt on Stearns' part to try and get Sam off of his back, as he knew that Sam Wilson was coming for him. So he tried to set up an incident that would cause Sam to go back to see Oziah, since, well, Oziah was one of those shooters, so maybe he could be a target as well. But the fact that Sam continued going to Camp Echo 1 was a surprise even to him. So again, clearly he can see a lot of variables, but he can't. But even what he predicts isn't entirely accurate. Either way, but regardless, it's still pretty damn accurate. And it was through those probabilities that he helped General Ross become president. But like I said, General Ross didn't keep his end of the bargain. So, well, Stearns wants payback, as even though he knew that Ross was going to betray him, well, he wanted his freedom, so he was willing to do whatever it took. But yeah. Of course Cap wants to bring him in because, well, he's hurting people, and at least 4 people are dead now because of his actions, but the Leader doesn't want to stop here. He wants to make Ross pay, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to do it. But the thing is, Thing is, what kind of confuses Cap is the fact that, well, he didn't kill Ross. Because you see, the thing is, at one point in the movie, before Cap and Joaquin went to go confront the leader, Cap did look over the security footage again, and he was surprised that Ozai didn't just take out Ross when he had the chance, because he had him right in his sights, and yet he missed. So why would he do that? Well, they put simply, the leader doesn't want Ross dead. He wants him torn down. And how he's going to do that? Well, let's just say that things are going to get a whole lot worse before they get better. But either way, before Cap and Joaquin can actually confront the leader, he activates this gravitational device or whatever to just throw them to the floor while he makes a getaway. And in the meantime, several soldiers that were guarding Camp Echo 1 end up coming in and pointing their rifles at Sam and Joaquin, and, well, they are more than ready to open fire on them because they're mind controlled too. Thankfully, the Captain America and Falcon guys are able to take them out, or able to take most of them out, though they unfortunately can't take all of them out. Though thankfully that's when Ruth comes in, because the thing is, she's a former Black Widow. Yeah, they mentioned that at one scene, as, like I said, Sam wanted Joaquin to look into Ruth's backstory, and sure enough, Joaquin was able to figure out that Ruth was a former Black Widow. But so, she does have some moves, and she's able to take out the remaining soldiers, and so she helps Sam and Joaquin escape, though she wonders why the hell they're here since they were ordered not to get involved with this case, but whatever. She's willing to take whatever help she can, as at this point she knows that something bigger is going on, and to even add extra precaution, she had Ozai move to solitary so that he'd have better protection, something that he was against, but unfortunately couldn't do a damn thing about. Once again, unfortunately for the good guys, as the trio of heroes do end up leaving Camp Echo 1 to try and go after Dr. Stearns, well, they end up running into that group of soldiers that Ross sent after Sam and Joaquin, as well the soldiers come in and immediately arrest them because they're trespassing on government property. Thankfully, though, or unthankfully, I guess, before they can actually take them away, they hear that Mr. Blue song over their radios, and it turns out, yeah, they're all sleeper agents too, as they immediately try opening fire on Cap, Joaquin, and Ruth. Thankfully, they're able to get out of their handcuffs. They're able to get Cap's shield back, and they manage to hijack with a van that they were going to be driven away in, as they just make a run for it, while the soldiers are still opening fire on them. Either way, they have to find a place to lay low. And since there aren't really a lot of options of where to go, Sam does know one guy that could help them. A man named, again, gotta look at my notes, so apologies. Gotta look through these. Let's see. He goes to meet with a soldier named Dunphy, who's based out of a government facility that's so low on the totem pole that the higher ups don't really go there. And since Dunphy is a friend of Sam, well, he's not gonna rat him out to the higher ups. So that's a place they can go. In the meantime, though, back with Ross, well, he's meeting with two members of his staff who do confirm that everything that the Prime Minister of Japan told them was true. That someone in the American government was the one to pay to have the adamantium stolen from the Japanese government. Something that, the thing is, Ross is aware that Stearns is after him, but again, because of the deal he made with Stearns, he can't publicly admit it, so he's not doing anything to counter it, and as a result, he's kind of in hot water. As such, he really has to, and so he's trying to figure out how to try and navigate through all this, but it's not made any better when the two members of his cabinet are just kind of shouting at him back and forth what they need to do, as Prime Minister Ozaki is sending his fleet to try and secure more adamantium, that India and Paris are gearing up their forces, that everyone's just going in to try and get as much adamantium as they can. And as Ross is trying to talk with them, he's clearly getting a little bit more agitated and upset, as he's just trying to get a word in, and everyone just keeps talking and talking and talking until he finally gets so fed up that he pretty much tells them to shut up and slams his fist down on a stone table. And slams it so hard that he manages to crack it. Either way, he manages to calm them down enough so that he's able to at least make his voice heard. As at this point, it's clear the treaty is kind of a bust, so he needs to at least try and grab whatever adamantium they can so that America doesn't end up with jack and shit. As such, he wants the American fleet to gear up as well, as while he's aware that this could potentially lead to war, again, they need to get whatever they can, and he was a wartime general, he may as well be a wartime president. back with Sam and Co. They do end up meeting up with Dunphy at this low rank government facility, and Sam basically ends up giving the pills that he took from Camp Echo 1 to Dunphy so that he can get them checked out and see what's in them, because whatever's in them, it has to do with Ross, and so he wants to make sure that whatever these things are, they're safe, or if they're poisonous, that he can at least know what. But thankfully, Dunphy also did Sam some favors, and he managed to find Sidewinder. As such, Sidewinder and Sam do end up talking, and Sidewinder does kind of further explain more about Samuel Stearns' backstory, about what Ross did and so forth, and how Stearns basically wants his payback against Ross, and in return, he wants a lighter sentence and to be put in a specific prison with his own cell. And ultimately, Sam is able to use his connections to get him these things, though he promises Sidewinder that if he should break out, that he will find him, which Sidewinder says that he will, because he will break out at some point. Either way, though, it's clear that Samuel Stearns is after Ross, so immediately Sam wants to go and find Ross. And when he learns that Ross has gone out to the Indian Ocean to try and get as much adamantium as he could before other countries can take it, Joaquin and Ruth do end up flying out to Air Force One and the subsequent and ultimately the subsequent carrier. Sorry, I'm blanking on words. I apologize. And they do manage to meet with Ross as the American fleet and the Japanese fleet do end up meeting at the what's left of Tiamat, or as they're calling it, Celestial Island. I love that kind of. But either way, Sam and Co. do manage to meet up with Ross. And while Ross is beyond pissed that Sam is still involved with us, even after he told him to get lost, Sam wants to have a chat with Ross, and he says that he's more than willing to talk about all this stuff in public, but he thinks that Ross would want to make it private. As such, kind of being given the ultimatum, Ross takes Sam back into his private office, and they do chat, with Sam talking to Ross about what he found at Camp Echo 1, and how he's afraid that Stearns has been doing something, that Stearns may have his sights on Ross as well, or he may even have him be a sleeper agent, even asking Ross if he's been feeling like himself lately. Of course, Ross says he's been feeling fine, but when the topic of Samuel Stearns comes up, he's kind of getting tight-lipped and gets more and more egregious with Sam, telling him to pretty much piss off, mind his own business and all that. And the more Sam keeps pushing him to reveal what's going on, the more Ross just gets more and more angry and tells him to knock it off. And Sam basically says, "What was so bad?" It's like, come on, you gotta tell me what's going on. You gotta tell me why you're willing to make a deal like this and why you went back on it, yada yada yada. And ultimately, Sam managed to push Ross so much that Ross finally just comes out and says it. He was dying. The thing is, he didn't just keep Samuel Stearns on standby so that he could help him become the President of the United States. He had Samuel Stearns on standby because, well, his heart was giving out. He needed something to help save his life, and he saw an opportunity in Samuel Stearns, as he believed that this guy with his new enhanced brain power would be able to find him a solution, and Samuel Stearns did find him a solution, and that ultimately are those pills that Ross has been taking, as they help kind of even out his heart and keep him alive. And ultimately, unfortunately for Dr. Stearns, those pills were a major reason why his freedom wasn't assured. As while Ross did try to pull some strings to get him transferred out of Camp Echo 1, it didn't go well, and well, if he tried going further into detail about why he wanted him transferred, he would have to open up about his relationship with him, which meant potentially losing access to the pills since, well, Samuel Stearns was the only person that could give him those. Either way, he basically was kind of between a rock and a hard place, and he chose his own reputation and his own health over the promise he made to Samuel Stearns. As such, Sam hears all this and understands, and basically another reason why Ross is still being so tight-lipped about his relationship with the leader is because, again, he's trying to show that he can be a better person, and he knows that if all this dirt came out, he would lose the trust of the American people. He could potentially lose his presidency, and the thing is, while may have been some dubious means to get him to that president's seat, he is trying to do his best. He is trying to do right by the American people. He's trying to be a good man, not just because he wants to show he can change, but he wants to show he can change to his daughter. As, well, ever since the events of the Incredible Hulk, Betty has not wanted to set foot anywhere near her father. And so he just desperately wants to see her again. Let her know that he is still the good man that she looked up to when she was a kid. He wants to show her that he's still the same guy that took her for walks through the cherry blossoms in the summer. He just wants to show her that he is trying. And ultimately, Sam lets him know that he understands where he's coming from, but regardless of how hard it is to try and fess up to all these things, the right thing isn't always easy, but it's something they need to worry about and do. Unfortunately, though, this conversation is put on hold as Samuel Stearns once again makes his handiwork known as he managed to hack the comms for two fighter jets, and turns out they were sleeper agents, as the instant they hear the Mr. Blue song playing over their radios, they immediately go rogue and begin trying to open fire on the Japanese fleet. As such, in order to try and prevent an international incident, Sam and Joaquin end up gearing up as the pair of them take their wings and just fly out to try and stop these rogue fighters. In the meantime, Ross stays behind to try and contact Prime Minister Ozaki, who from his perspective, it looks like that Ross is immediately turning on them and is trying to start a war. And while Ross tries to tell them, no, we're being manipulated, there's someone higher up that's playing both of us, unfortunately, because he can't tell who the guy is, it makes Prime Minister Ozaki less willing to even listen to him. And as a result, there is still a lot of tensions as Sam and Joaquin are trying to get rid of these trying to take down these rogue jet fighters, while the Japanese military is also opening fire on them. It's honestly a really tense scene with a lot of cool action, a lot of honestly cool flying. We see some creative use of Sam's technology as he uses Red Wing to try and Red Wing to hold up his shield so it blocks out some of the shots fired from the Japanese soldiers. It's actually a really cool scene, and it does end with one of the fighters being taken down as his jet's taken out, and the guy is sent out of his fighter on a parachute. Unfortunately, that also leaves the other guys still around, and unfortunately, after Ross was pretty much told to screw himself by Prime Minister Ozaki, his mental state is not so well, as it looks like he's kind of losing his cool a bit. Made even worse by the fact that the headset he's wearing gets hacked by the leader, who managed to get access to a phone via either a general or a statesman or someone, I don't know, no, not a statesman, a senator, whatever. Point is, he broke into some guy's home and basically stole his, and pretty much just borrowed his phone, i.e. killed him and took it for himself, as he pretty much begins talking to General Ross and pretty much just lets him know that, well, this is part of his big grand plan. As the thing is, he wants, as I said, he doesn't want to destroy Ross by killing him. He wants to destroy his legacy. And it turns out he's done something to Ross, something that involves the pills. And so as Ross hears the leader speak in his ear, you can tell something's going on with him physically as he leaves the room and stumbles out into a hallway and loses him and just kind of seems to lose his balance. And he begins to realize that whatever the leader's done, it does involve the pills. And while the leader tells him that all he would have to do is stop taking those pills, he knows he's not going to. And apparently whatever the leader's done, it's going to cause some big changes in Ross as he begins losing his balance, and you can see that something is happening to him as he's losing his cool, and the leader keeps whispering in his ear saying, let the rage out, let out the beast, you could take them all, you could take out that entire fleet in one fell swoop and kill Captain America. And as he's saying all this, Ross is not looking well. You see him grabbing a pipe and almost beginning to crush it in his bare hands. You see his eyes flashing red as you go down to his calves, and you see them beginning to grow. However, thankfully, before any incidents occur, the good guys do win, as Cap managed to catch up with one of the rogue fighters, just before he kamikazed right into the Japanese fleet, and after he managed to get the guy ejected from his plane, Sam was able to redirect the plane enough so that it missed the Japanese fleet. Unfortunately, though, in the process, his wingman Joaquin also was severely injured, as this same fighter wound up shooting missiles at the Japanese fleet earlier, and while Joaquin was able to take out one missile, in order to take out the other, he had to get up close and personal, which unfortunately left him in critical condition. Thankfully, he was saved thanks to a medevac, but he's not doing well. But either way, an international incident has been stopped, and the Japanese have just seen Captain America and his partner do everything they can to stop these fighters, so at least does assure the Japanese government that Ross was not lying, that these two guys were acting on their own and no one was trying to stand in their way. So it at least does help paint the American government in a positive light. And once Ross hears about how everything's calmed down and everything's good, he begins to calm down as well, and whatever's happening to him begins to settle, much to the leader's own chagrin as he hears everything going well and then lets out a scream. Either way, it seems like everything is all fine and dandy, well, save for Joaquin. As Sam is watching Joaquin as he's in surgery, and they're trying to help him out as he's in critical condition, which does lead to an admittedly kind of dumb scene where Sam questions whether he was a good enough choice to be Captain America, but thankfully that all gets put to bed as Bucky comes in and reassures Sam that he knows he can do it, that Cap didn't pick him for his strength, that he knows that he has the heart to be Captain America, blah, blah, blah. We went over this in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's just restating what's already there. Point is, Bucky's there to help to get Sam out of his rut. Thankfully, but either way, the international incident aside, it looks like things are going well. Unfortunately, Ozaiah Bradley is still in prison, and there is a possibility, and there's even talk that he could be facing the death sentence for what happened to him, which does piss off Wilson. But he at least has to make it his priority to find Samuel Stearns so that he can at least bring him to justice and put this all to bed. In the meantime, with Ross, after the incident at Celestial Island, he's planning on holding a press conference in the White House garden. Though as he's getting ready for this, he does try calling Betty, who for once actually does pick up. Who, as I'm guessing that with him almost getting shot at, did at least make her want to know what her dad's up to. And so they're able to talk, and while it's clear that Betty is still kind of keeping him at a distance, she is at least being polite with him, and he does offer that maybe they could see each other again, maybe take a walk through the cherry blossoms again, and it's admittedly a nice scene, as Betty does agree that they could do that sometime. Though when he says he loves her, she just says goodbye, Dad, and hangs up. So yeah, it's clear that General Ross has a lot of legwork to do before he can get back in Betty's good graces completely. But in the meantime, back with Dunphy, as he's still back at that as he's still at that low on the totem pole base, he ends up getting a call from a scientist who he sent those pills to, and it turns out the scientist did get the pills tested, and what he found in them was shocking. Turns out the pills were pumped full of gamma. And the fact that General Ross kept taking them means that he's been slowly introducing gamma into his systems. And so Dunphy has every intention of calling Cap and letting him know, hey, the president's been taking gamma, go and warn him. Well, before he even gets a chance, he's intercepted by the leader, who causes his heart to collapse by playing a high enough frequency. So yeah, that doesn't go well, and as a result, Sam doesn't get to know this knowledge until, well, it's too late. As Ross ends up going to the press conference, and he ends up talking with the press, lets them know everything's fine, that everything's going well, they're getting ready to sign the treaty again, so they can evenly distribute the adamantium, and well, he just starts taking questions from the press. And at first, the questions seem innocent as people bring up certain political things that have been happening and Ross's response to it. But in the meantime, back with Sam, well, he ends up running into Samuel Stearns, who meets up with them because, well, the thing is, Sam kind of stopped his plans. After all, his big plan was to set up this international incident and let Ross take the fall and ultimately push him over the edge. Now the thing is, thanks to Sam and Joaquin, that plan failed. But he had a backup plan, and that backup plan involved him turning himself in. And so he tells Sam that while everything may seem all hunky-dory now, his plan wasn't to start a war. And Sam ultimately did figure out that, yeah, Sam Wilson was able to figure out that Dr. Samuel Stearns was planning on basically just dragging General Ross's name through the mud, not to kill him. And the leader does say, yeah, that's my plan. But what you don't know is how I was going to do it. And of course, Cap pretty much says, well, yeah, I know, through the pills, right? Yeah, I got a guy looking at that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you did. Which, yeah, at this point, Cap realizes that something's going on. And so, as Dr. Stearns is ultimately apprehended, as soldiers end up coming out of nowhere and arresting him, immediately Cap realizes that something isn't right, as he realizes that he's probably set up a few backup plans. And, well, those backup plans begin taking effect, as during the press conference, the press begin asking Ross more probing questions about his involvement with Samuel Stearns, about his relationship with Camp Echo 1, about how he hid Samuel Stearns on his black side. And when Ross hears all this, he starts actually looking shocked and irritated as he tries to say, no, that's a lie. None of that happened. You're all being misled. Well, it turns out that his BS is promptly called out as the conversation he had with Stearns earlier in the movie on the phone is played over the speakers of the whole area, resulting in everyone getting definitive proof that General Ross was working with Samuel Stearns. Of course, the press immediately starts freaking out as they're trying to ask him questions. At which point Ross's PR team, everyone working under him tries pulling him off stage because this is causing an incident and they need to get him away. However, Ross does not want to leave. He's like, no, I gotta explain things to him. I gotta talk about this. But they keep saying, no, you gotta go now. You gotta go. Like, the more you stay out here, it's getting worse. And the more they keep doing this, the more irritated Ross is getting. And he's just like saying, no, I need to talk to them. I need to talk to them. And everything just keeps piling up as you see Ross getting angrier and angrier until, we see what Stearns' big plan was. Because, the thing is, before he was hauled away, he told Cap that, and I did write this line down because it was a damn good line. Ross turned me into a monster. It's only fair that I do the same to him. And, we see that in play. We see that monster in place as Ross finally hits a breaking point. And we see what all that gamma being introduced into his systems did to him. As when Ross finally gets angry enough, he begins changing. He starts getting stronger. He keels over as his bones start rearranging. His hand twists and convulses. His muscles begin growing to the point where his clothes both rip and burn off of his skin. Hold on a sec. Sorry, Chinny went on the bed. And, this is where we finally get the MCU debut of the Red Hulk. And yes, I'm not gonna lie, this was well worth the build-up. And what I love is that once the Red Hulk makes his appearance, he looks genuinely confused and irritated and angry until he sees his reflection in the White House window. And let's just say he doesn't take his new state of being rather well. And so, while the Secret Service are pointing their arms at him, wanting to see if this is still General Ross, or see if this is still Ross, all it takes is him taking the presidential podium and chucking it across the field to let them know, no, this guy is not Ross. He is pissed and he will hurt people. As such, everyone opens fire on him, which I'm going to call some BS on because it's the fucking Hulk. You don't open fire on this guy unless you want to piss him off some more, which guess what? They do, as the Red Hulk begins immediately turning his attention on all the Secret Service agents and all the people, and he does almost nearly kill them, but thankfully that's when Cap arrives on the scene and he manages to get his attention, and it leads to, honestly, the best fight scene in the entire fucking movie, and because it's just so good. Like, I've heard people complain about how ever since the stuff with Professor Hulk and Endgame, they've been wanting to see an angry Hulk again. The rampaging one, the big monster who will go apeshit and just wreck everything because you pissed him off that day. And this movie delivers on that. The battle between Red Hulk and Captain America is hands down the best scene in the entire movie. As they get thrown across the entire presidential garden, the battle takes them to the top of the White House, which gets trashed as the Red Hulk just keeps destroying every single thing in his way. And it takes Cap everything he has just to make sure the Red Hulk's attention stays on him, because people for some reason are stupid. And I understand they're trying to protect innocence and they gotta take this monster down, but counter argument, he's a fucking Hulk. Nothing can hurt him, and it's really hard to take him down, especially since all these things are just going to irritate him. And as established with the Hulk, the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. So I think it's kind of dumb that they keep essentially poking this giant red bear with a stick and expecting it to stop and only getting him angrier. Thankfully, Sam's efforts don't end in failure, as the Hulk's attention is still primarily focused on him. And while at certain points in the battle, Sam has to try and stop the Hulk from hurting innocents, he is still able to keep his attention on him, and he at least tries to redirect redirect the Red Hulk's attention away from people as he gets him to follow him further into DC, past the Washington Monument, which gets fucking destroyed through various woods, and the Red Hulk is just pursuing Sam relentlessly until eventually they both get knocked into into an orchard of cherry blossoms. And at first, Cap thinks that he can use this opportunity to try and reach the man and the monster, try to get through to Ross and let him know, hey, I want to figure out, it's like, hey, these are the cherry blossoms. They remind you of anything? But unfortunately, Ross is buried too deep inside the Hulk's buried deep inside the Red Hulk's psyche. So at this point, Sam has to fight. Thankfully, he does actually have an advantage, because you see, the thing is, he does still have his wings, and he is able to face off against Ross very easily, as the wings are still coated with vibranium, and they're actually one of the few substances that can actually hurt the Hulk, actually get through to him, actually cut up his skin. And as a result, Sam is able to throw bits of his wings and tips into the Red Hulk and actually manage to do some damage. And so as the Red Hulk is still fighting against him, he's able to at least try and hurt him more and more. But unfortunately, the Red Hulk starts turning the tide as he actually manages to power through more of Sam's attacks, and at one point even manages to rip off one of his wings and tries to almost crush Sam's head in his giant hand. Thankfully, Sam is able to save himself by knocking one of his wingtips right into Red Hulk's side, which allows him to get free. And well, I mentioned earlier how Sam's wings are storing up kinetic energy and vibration and all that. Well, he used that to his advantage as his wings can manage to store up enough energy from the Red Hulk that they're actually now just fully charged from it. And so Sam, with one wing left, immediately rushes at the Red Hulk, jabs his wing right into the Red Hulk's side, and unleashes all the energy right in that monster's face. It's honestly badass, and I love it. And as a result, the Red Hulk ends up getting buried under a bunch of rubble while Sam seems to get briefly knocked out. Thankfully, it's at this point when Ruth and various other security officials arrive and do a check on them, and they are able to get to Sam, and they're able to make sure he's okay. But unfortunately, his attack did not take down the Red Hulk, which does piss off Sam, so he realizes that if he wants to take him down, he needs to try the other way again. And well, he does finally manage to finally get through to Ross, as rather than trying to appeal to him with a location, he tries appealing to his good nature and why he's been wanting to change. That he wants to change for Betty. That ultimately he wants to change. He wants to prove he's a better man, and he can still be that man. He can still be the person Betty wants him to be. He just needs to believe it. He needs to accept it, and this does manage to finally get through to Ross as the Red Hulk begins calming down a little, finally gets a good look at where he is, and he managed to let a rose petal fall into his hand. And it finally manages to touch enough of his humanity that the Red Hulk finally calms down and transforms back into General Ross, who unfortunately is not in the best physical state. As such, he's taken away on Medivac, and ultimately, thankfully everything is calm now. And well, following this incident, things finally start getting wrapped up. You see, as well, after Ross was taken away, well, he was finally given a chance to talk, and well, he pretty much just told the truth to everybody. He told him what he had done with the leader, what he had been attempting to do, what the deal was, and well, he ends up stepping down from his presidency. Would you believe that that's the most unrealistic thing in this movie? But regardless, he still did a lot of bad shit, and the thing is, the pills he had been taking, the reason why they got absorbed into a system like they did, well, the thing is, the pills were originally dosed with gamma radiation to help even out his heart, but like I said, since the leader did kind of see Ross's betrayal coming, he did plan in case the day came when he would need to enact a plan of revenge. And so over the years, the leader had been upping the gamma dosage in the pills to the point where it just kind of built up in Ross's system, to the point where, well, all he would need is the right trigger and he'd become a Hulk. So, yeah. That was basically the leader's endgame. It wasn't just to destroy Ross's reputation, but to literally turn him into a monster and have the entire world see it. Which he kind of succeeded in, but thankfully that plan was also tempered by the fact that Ross willingly turned himself in and basically confessed to everything. As a result, Ross is moved to the raft, where he basically is okay with being, as he knows that as he is right now, it's dangerous for people to be around him. But thankfully, he's not alone. As Sam goes to see him, and Sam assures Ross that that treaty he'd been trying to get signed throughout the movie, it was signed. As despite everything, his intentions were still pure on that front, and so ultimately, the countries of the world are planning on still evenly distributing adamantium to everybody. They're even calling the treaty the Ozaki-Ross Accords. It's nice. And to try and throw Ross a bone, Betty goes to see him in the raft. And while Ross is kind of saddened to say that they probably will have to postpone that walk, Betty is at least more than happy to just sit down with her dad and talk, which I like. I like that. And on other positive fronts, since Ross fully admitted to his involvement with Samuel Stearns and subsequently had to talk about what Samuel Stearns did, Uzziah Bradley, he's been released completely. All charges have been dropped because, well, he was under mind control, and so everything is all hunky-dory as he manages to earn his freedom. And in the case of Joaquin, well, he's thankfully recovering in the hospital. He's still not 100%, he's still confined to a hospital bed as he's still in recovery, but it's at least enough. But he's at least okay, and as such, Uzziah and Sam go to see him separately, and basically Joaquin admits that despite everything that he's gone through and everything that he's done, he still wants to be a hero. That everything that Sam goes through, all the pressure, all the anxiety, all the fear that he could get it wrong, he wants that. He was inspired by heroes, and the one hero he wanted to be was the Falcon. And so finally, Sam begins kind of sharing some of his tips and tricks with Joaquin, telling him all the moves he can do, and Joaquin even admits that with how badly damaged that Sam's gear was and everything, Joaquin could do his own improvements. Maybe he'll make the suit his own, which does result in him and Sam having a kind of fun little back and forth with each other about it. And so the film ends with them just kind of being friendly with each other. Although, since it's a Marvel movie, we of course also have an after-credits scene as we cut to Sam Wilson as he goes to see the leader as he's in prison. And the thing is, he's basically telling the leader that he fucked up, his entire plan failed, and that ultimately he's just going to spend all his time rotting here. But the leader does tell Sam that, yeah, this plan may have failed, but there's something even greater waiting on the horizon. That Sam is a protector of this world, but there are other worlds, and what's Sam going to do when they come knocking? So yeah, that's a thing, and it's apparently supposed to hint at the Illuminati, but whatever. So, yeah, you managed to get through my plot summary. What did I think of this movie? It's alright. Yeah, let me put it this way. I can understand why critics reacted the way they did to this movie, but I can't say I agree with them. Not completely in that regard. When it comes down to this movie, I think it's fine-ish. To kind of put it this way, let me talk about things about the movie that I genuinely think didn't work. And one of those problems is, unfortunately, the pacing. From the very first scene in this movie, the film feels like it's kind of rushing through everything. Like, it feels like it's afraid to let everything stand on it, to let everything just kind of settle in. Like, it needs to be in your face and get through the plot as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, that pace is apparent throughout the entire movie. From the very beginning, and when it gets to showing the studios involved with the movie, like Marvel Studios, it instead just kind of goes through them very quickly and flashy, instead of just letting them kind of stand on their own merits and work for, and kind of get, and ultimately just let people soak in what they're going through. It's honestly kind of a problem, and sadly the rest of the movie kind of keeps up with that, as it just keeps going from one scene to the next without really a lot of time to let emotions sink in and let characters kind of breathe. And unfortunately, it does keep me from getting fully emotionally invested in the movie, and yes, that is a problem. Hold on one second. Sorry, went back to looking through my notes. And kind of going on to that same tangent about the film feeling, well, rushed. Unfortunately, because of that, the emotional engagement in this movie is minimal, to say the least. In fact, I dare say that another big problem in this movie, it feels strictly business. Like, this doesn't feel like a big movie that exists because, we need to get because we need to have the next big movie in the MCU. To put it one way, it's a filler episode. In the grand scheme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this film feels like a filler episode. Now, in some regards, the film does try to add more weight to everything, and does try to add a bit of intrigue and subterfuge, like with having Ross doing some shady stuff behind the scenes in order to ensure his presidency, or having the leader in the background organizing things behind the scenes under everybody's nose. And I can see that what they were trying to go for, but whether they succeed or not is up to you, and in my opinion, they don't do it well. And let's kind of put it this way, it feels like this film is trying to do what Winter Soldier did, but doesn't fully comprehend how Winter Soldier did what it did. So I will kind of consider that another problem. And kind of going off of that same thing, well, I don't like saying this, especially considering one of the compliments I'll give to the movie later, but Sam Wilson doesn't really have much of an arc in this movie. In fact, I dare say that when it comes to his personal investment in the plot, it doesn't feel like he has any. Let me put it this way. In previous Captain America movies, while the films have ultimately been superhero movies that have had to have larger reaching implications for the MCU and did have these grand stakes involved, at the end of the day, each film was still focused exclusively on Captain America and did tend to have an arc for the character. In the first Avenger, it was about Steve Rogers coming into his own as Captain America and basically trying to prove himself and show that he was a good hero and a good soldier, as he had to deal with people trying to beat him down and say he wasn't worthy both before and after he got the super soldier serum. Before, because he was a small shrimpy guy who could barely handle his own in a fight, and then after, because even after he got the super soldier serum, people kept trying to push him to the sidelines, which is what led to him becoming Captain America, as he was basically a stage show character who didn't know what he was supposed to be doing and ultimately had to rush into danger because his friend was in danger, as his friend needed help, which did convince the higher-ups that, yeah, maybe it is a good idea to try and put this guy in the battlefield. But at the same time, there was still an arc there, and it was about Steve Rogers trying to prove himself and basically try and make his way into a war that people were trying to keep him out of, but ultimately he wanted to be a part of because his moral obligations and his sense of heroism always won out, and he was always willing to do the right thing regardless of what people said of him. Then you get to the Winter Soldier. In that one, the character arc with Steve was that he was trying to navigate a world he didn't fully understand, was trying to make sense of all these complexities in the world that he didn't really understand, he didn't comprehend. And through asking questions, he uncovered this big conspiracy that could spell trouble for almost everybody. And then in the midst of all that, he was also trying to help his friend, someone that he thought was lost to him years ago, and trying to bring him back to the side of the Angels. It's again really good and emotional and keeps you invested. And then with Civil War, it involved Steve basically standing up for his morals and trying to do the right thing regardless of what everyone told him to do. And as a result, it led to a very more complex story that brought him to blows with the people he once called allies, and even standing by his former friend, even though the stuff that his friend had done was coming back to bite them in the worst way possible. It's what led to that film having such a bittersweet ending, as despite him standing up for his friend, well, it cost him a lot, and it made for a more compelling arc, as despite everything, he still stood up for his beliefs, even though it cost him everything. So in those films' regards, they did have arcs for Steve in there. But what's Sam's arc in this movie? Quite frankly, I can't think of any. You could probably argue that maybe there's a bit of the usual Captain America stand up for your belief system in there, as despite being told not to get involved with the investigation, Sam Wilson goes fuck that and does anyway because he wants to help Ozai Bradley. But I'm gonna be honest, that is not very important in the movie. Yeah, it's mentioned every once in a while that he's doing all this because he also wants to help clear Ozai Bradley's name, but for the majority of the movie, it feels like just your standard superhero fare, as he's made aware there's someone shady going on behind the scenes that he needs to deal with, which leads to a domino effect as he learns about all the stuff that Samuel Stearns has been up to, his relationship with General Ross, and the consequences of Samuel Stearns wanting revenge against Ross. But otherwise, the connection with Ozai Bradley, It's not there. In fact, I dare say you could probably cut Uzziah Bradley out of the movie and nothing would change, which I don't like saying, because I do like Uzziah Bradley, and his arc in the movie is a good one, as I do feel sorry for him when he's arrested again. In fact, I'll give another comment to the movie. When Uzziah Bradley is arrested, it hits hard. You can see the raw fear and pain on his face as he realizes he's going to be locked up again, and he doesn't want to be locked up, as he wants to run away, but it's only on the trust of Sam that he lets himself be taken away. And even then, when he's taken away, he tells Sam to just stop, because he knows what the implications could be if Sam continues investigating this case. So there is a lot of heavy emotion in there, and quite frankly, I think it's done well. But in the grand scheme of the film, Uzziah is sadly a footnote, and I don't like saying that, but he is. You literally could have had it be there was an incident at the White House that Sam had to deal with, and then ultimately work to try and catch one of the shooters who somehow, I don't know, either got away or who killed or who died or said, "What's going on? What's happening?" And you still would have had Sam say, "Okay, I need to get involved in this. Clearly something is going on." You could have had everything involved, but you literally could have cut Uzziah Bradley out of the movie. I don't like saying that. I don't. But it's true. I don't like that, and I don't like saying that, because when it comes down, because by virtue of the Uzziah plot in the movie having very little to do with the outcome, aside from being the thing that puts Sam into the action and compels him to want to investigate, it's just standard superhero fare. Some big incident happens that requires the Captain America to step in and save the day. He begins an investigation. He tracks down the bad guy. He learns what the greater implication of the bad guy's plan is. Works to stop it. Almost does. Learns the bad guy has a backup plan. Deals with the ramifications of the backup plan, i.e., fights the Red Hulk. And by the end, everything is resolved. So, in that regard, it just kind of feels like standard superhero fare. And as a result, sad to say, Sam Wilson doesn't really have much of an arc in this movie, and I do find that to be disappointing. And then on another note, let's talk about the leader. No, I'm going to say right now, I am very happy that they finally decided to wrap up that loose thread from The Incredible Hulk. It bugged me It bugged me to hell and back that the stuff with the leader was just forgotten about after the Incredible Hulk movie, and so so I was more than ready to just let that become another forgotten plot thread. But the fact that they actually integrated it into the movie, I'm okay with, and I do like that they acknowledge that a lot of time passed between that movie and this movie. As well, that means the leader has been locked up for at least 16 years, which is what he says in the movie. Which I like that. I like that. I like that acknowledgement, and the makeup they gave the leader is perfect. Like most versions of the leader, just have him look like a normal guy, but with green skin and a giant bulbous head because of how big of his brain is. But in this movie, they make him look, well, sick. Like legitimately sick. Not sick as in, oh, that's cool. No, it looks like he's actually not doing well physically. Like his skin is green like his comic book counterpart, and his head is still bulbous from his brain, but rather than it looking like it's just a big brain on his head, it looks like a mutation. It looks like that his brain is a growth on his head. And to further showcase that, his eyes look weird, as one eye is glowing green from the gamma radiation pulsing through his body, while he's blind in the other. It, honest to God, looks creepy. And I'll give credit to his actor. He turns in a fantastic performance as the leader, and does have his share of creepy moments that do make him come across as a rather intimidating fucker. And I give even more credit. I like that the leader isn't an OP supervillain. The thing is, while they show the leader is smart and can plan for a lot of variables in the movie, well, there are some things he can't predict, and it's ultimately that margin for error that comes back to bite him in the ass. As well, he can predict how people will react to some degree. It's clear that he can't predict for everything. It's like Death in the Final Destination movies. Death can plan for a lot of things, and 9 times out of 10 he can get things the way they want, but the human factor is always going to be a thing, and that will muck up the plans in the end. And that's what happens in Captain America: Brave New World. As despite the leader's best laid plans, Captain America and co. do end up being a monkey wrench in the system and do end up sabotaging his plans. And while things do kind of go the way he wants to in the end, it did require a bit of improvisation at points. So I do at least like that they don't make him like an OP villain. With that said, I think he was also an underutilized villain. While he has his share of moments and definitely can come across as a creepy fucker, and I would love to see more of the leader in other MCU projects if they continue to want to bring him back, especially since by the end of the movie he is still alive. Unfortunately, in this movie, I think he's underutilized. I think we should have had him do more. By virtue of him trying to be the guy in the background that's manipulating people by his mind control programs and by just pushing people in the right direction, like when he set up Ross to make it look like that Ross had paid to have the adamantium stolen from the Japanese, even though it was him using probably resources from other people. Hold on a second again. Again, sorry for all the pauses, but yeah, in that regard, like they do, like I said, it does more. All that does come together to make the leader come across as a manipulator, but he also just feels sadly underutilized. It feels like we should have had more with the character beyond what we saw in the movie. We should have seen him more as the planner in the background. Maybe had more scenes of him watching everything going to hell and just kind of seeing him watch and just kind of maybe talk about what Ross did to him. And again, there are share creepy moments. It's just that they don't. It's that combined with the film's rush nature and how it doesn't allow things to settle in emotionally. It makes the leader not come across as a very great villain. There are the makings of a great villain there, and I see the potential, but much like Whiplash and Iron Man 2, potential does not always result in a good villain. And sadly, the leader, despite all that they had going for him in the movie, sadly doesn't measure up, in my opinion. And that I don't think and I think that is sadly a problem. With all that said, though, why do I still think this film is fine? Well, that's because for all the negatives that it showcases, the things it does right are actually pretty damn entertaining. Case in point, Sam Wilson as Captain America. Now, while I did complain about how Sam Wilson didn't really have much of an arc in this movie beyond Uzziah being arrested and him wanting to clear his name, well, Sam Wilson is Captain America. Like, just watch the movie, and the thing, when I watched the movie, I looked at Sam Wilson, and I didn't see the Falcon trying to dress up as Captain America and failing. I saw Captain America. Yeah, he wasn't Steve Rogers, but he wasn't trying to be, because ultimately, I think that what Sam Wilson embodied was the spirit of the good captain, and how he embodied it was perfect, because ultimately everything that Sam does throughout the movie, everything that he fights for, everything that he stands up for, everyone he stands against, it feels like what Captain America would do, and he does it in a way that's both reminiscent of the spirit of Steve Rogers, but still his own thing. He's still a fun guy. He's still kind of jokey, and he can push back when he wants to. He can be just kind, and he can chill and hang out with people socially, and just kind of be a smart ass. But the spirit of Captain America is still present. He is inspiring. He's there for his friends, He's there to support people when they need him. Going back to the Uzziah Bradley thing, while I found his subplot is one that sadly could be cut out, the fact that he still stands up for Uzziah and still tells him, no, you're innocent, and I will get you out of here, despite even Uzziah telling him, stay out of this, is, I think, great. We see the determination in him. We see his creativity in the role of Captain America, as while he may not have the super soldier serum, he has expertise, and he is smart, and he's able to use whatever he has to his advantage, from his Wakandan technology, from Red Wing to his wings, to even just using the environment around him. And seeing him actually use the shield is fucking amazing. I look at him running around with that thing, dodging blasts, blocking attacks, throwing it around and knocking it off things, and I think, yeah, that's Captain fucking America. And it works throughout the entire movie. And how it's even more emboldened is the fact that, like Steve Rogers, Sam works to try and bring out the best in people. It's not just a guy who's just trying to throw his shield at things and hope for the best. He wants to help people however he can. I already mentioned the stuff with Uzziah and how far he was willing to go for him, but then you get to the stuff with Joaquin and how he sees him as a partner and confidant despite everything. And then by the end of the movie, he's more than willing to let Joaquin take up the mantle as the new Falcon, and as he even starts giving him tips and tricks. And I liked that. When he learned about why General Ross had Samuel Stearns under lock and key, he sympathized with him, and while he isn't completely okay with what he's doing, he does understand why he's doing it, and he does try to empathize with Ross and try and bring out the best in him. And then how he finally takes down the Red Hulk it's not by beating the shit out of him. It's by appealing to Ross's humanity, by letting him know that he's aware that Ross is trying to change, and that he can, and that if he gives himself the chance, he can change for the better. And I like that, because that's something that Captain America would do. He's not a guy who would just throw his shield at something and hope for the best. He's a good person, and he wants to help everyone become their best selves. And I like how they showcase that with Sam Wilson. As again, he's not Steve Rogers, but he isn't trying to be. And I think it works. And I think he makes for a genuinely strong lead. Like I said, he may not have had an arc in this movie, but I think with what he had, I think the strong characterization makes up for it and does make him to be an entertaining lead. And kind of going off that same token, I like the other characters in this movie. Like Joaquin, when I first saw the movie, I thought was maybe kind of annoying as a side character, but when I rewatched the movie for this vlog, he grew on me. I thought he actually did make for a nice foil to Sam Wilson's Cap, and the thing is, while he did have maybe a couple moments here and there where he was a little annoying, he was a very competent soldier and a good fighter, and you could tell that he took his role as Captain America's, protege, so to speak, very seriously. As he put his best foot forward, when he was in the midst of the action, he did have his eye on the ball. He did do his best to be a good hero, and quite frankly, as the Falcon, I think he kicked ass. And so by the end of the movie, when he and Sam are actually talking, and he talked about how he wants the danger, how he wants the pressure, he wants to have the weight of the world on his shoulders just because he wants to be a hero, it feels earned. And quite frankly, I think his and Sam's dynamic was a good one, as they kind of traded who was the straight man at any given time, and I think it worked out for the best. And on top of that, they're again kind of going back to the acting being good. Like I said, while the leader may not have had a lot to him, I think was underutilized, you could tell his actor was turning in a great performance. There's also the stuff with General Ross, and I'm gonna say right now, I loved General Ross in this movie. I already talked about how I thought Harrison Ford was a good replacement, but how they handle Ross in this movie is, in my opinion, perfect. Now I've heard critique from I think at least one internet personality that Harrison Ford looked just tired and out of breath throughout this movie, but I'm just gonna say right now, I think that was the intent, because the character we're shown in this movie isn't an angry general who's trying to throw his weight around. He is an old man who is inheriting a world that is falling apart, and he just wants to do whatever he can to keep it together, despite all of the wrong he's done. And the thing is, throughout the movie, as you see him constantly and consistently try to keep everything together, only for things to keep falling apart, you can see it getting to him. He's tired, he's upset, and to make it worse, the one person he's doing this all for, his daughter, is still not talking to him. This is a guy that clearly has so much on his mind, and yet he still wants to keep going. You see a man who's basically broken and is just trying in some way to regain a little bit of light in his life, and unfortunately, he did some shady things to get it back. And when those things finally come back to bite him, you can see how they affect him, both positively and negatively. And if I'm being honest, the build up to him becoming the Red Hulk was perfect. You saw the pressure slowly mounting up as everything was getting to him. You saw him being afraid for how things could go and how he was reacting to it, as he kept trying to keep his cool but was failing when nobody was around. You saw his brief outburst when two members of his staff were talking about the consequences of Prime Minister Ozaki calling him out on the information. You saw him losing his cool when he tried negotiating with Ozaki but it wound up failing because he didn't want to give him all the information. And then finally, by the end, when Samuel Stearns turns himself in and everything that he's done is made bare, and he's just desperate to try and clear up the story and tell everyone what happened, he gets pushed so far over the edge that he finally becomes the Red Hulk. And I thought that was brilliant. And having it be by the end of the movie that he basically is more than willing to fess up for everything that he's done, face punishment, and even step down from the presidency, I liked that. I thought it was good. And quite frankly, I think Harrison Ford turned in a fantastic performance. And on that same note, and again, apologies, I hope this is the last time I pause this vlog. Sorry, I was looking up an actor name. But to kind of go about on the performances, Sidewinder. He was portrayed by Giancarlo Esposito, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. But the thing is, despite how small of a role Sidewinder has in the movie, he's Esposito turns in a fantastic performance. The usual weight and seriousness that he brings with most of his roles, he brings to this one little character, and he just acts the hell out of him. And it makes all scenes with Sidewinder honestly a lot more entertaining. As this guy, as even with the fact that he's not the big bad, that he's basically just a mercenary, he still feels like he carries a lot more weight to him, and he just demands your attention every time he's on screen. And I think it's perfect as a result. And so the thing is, when it comes down to it, I do think that the side characters and so forth do work, and I think the acting for them more than pays off, and I think does make up for some of the writing failures in that regard, especially in regards to the leader. On top of that, again, looking through my notes because I did write this down. I already mentioned the acting. On top, like I said, the build up to the Red Hulk was perfect, as that's tied hand in hand with General Ross. But the action was fucking glorious. Every action scene in this movie was perfect and played to their strengths exactly. The first scene when Sam Wilson rushes into the church to take on Serpent was great. Seeing him first utilize his technology as Captain America was great. As seeing him take down the hostages was nice. Seeing Joaquin in his Falcon costume was spectacular. The assassination attempt at the White House was high octane and full of tension. I thought really carried the film. The scene, the attack at Echo One base just felt hot. Was claustrophobic in the best way possible. Which in turn made the action feel that much more compelling. It's still fun to see Sam just throw it around. The air battle around Celestial Island was so tense and on the wire, especially when you saw Ross struggling to not transform into the Red Hulk and hearing the leader whispering in his ear. It kept you on the edge of your seat, and you were just wanting to see, and you wanted the good guys to come out on top of the whole thing, so that when they finally do, you breathe a sigh of relief. And I do like that. And again, the fucking final fight scene with the Red Hulk is glorious. It is a fantastic final battle, and how it ends, I think, is spectacular. And to kind of go on a similar note, and to kind of go back to the strengths of the writing, one of the things that I noticed when I actually rewatched the movie was the film's theme. In this case, the theme, and I guess you could say this is kind of a character arc for Sam Wilson, is one of redemption. The central conflict for this movie is whether he meant it to or not, started by General Ross, and how despite his attempts in the present day to be a better person, he still did a lot of shady things in his past that he's still not willing to own up to. And the thing is, Sam Wilson and Samuel Stearns both look at Ross and they see a man who, despite the all outward appearances he's throwing up, is still a very angry individual that neither think can change. But the difference between our hero and villain in that mindset is that Samuel Stearns, the leader, looks at General Ross and just sees all the worst parts of him, and he genuinely believes that it's his duty to bring all those worst parts to light and just tear Ross down so that he can't deceive anyone else. But then you get to Sam Wilson, Captain America. And for him, well, he does look at Ross and he sees the same man who threw him in prison because he sided with Steve Rogers during the Civil War. By that same token, he does still try and look for the best parts of him. And because, well, like I said, Sam Wilson is Captain America, and it's his job to try and see the best parts of people. And while he may not like Ross, he also acknowledges that Ross is trying to do better. And while Sam openly believes that Ross may not succeed and that he may end up falling back into his old habits, well, he is still trying to put on a brave face, and he's at least giving Ross the chance to be a better person. And so even when he confronts General Ross about the shady shit that he's done, he still tries standing by him, still tries defending him, and even does everything he can to try and bring out the better person that Ross is trying to be. And I think that's what makes for a very compelling arc, that ultimately, regardless of all the terrible things we've done, we're not beyond redemption. It's just a matter of whether we want to reach that redemption, whether we believe we deserve it, and whether or not we want to become better people. And I like how they showcase that in relation with Captain America and General Ross. As while the villain of our movie thinks that people can't change and that Ross deserves everything he can, our hero is at least trying to is still trying to practice what he preaches, and is trying to bring out the best parts of Ross, even if he himself believes that maybe those parts aren't there. And I like that. I like how that's showcased in the movie, and it's kind of all brought to a head when Sam is the one that helps calm Ross down, and even has a talk with him. Even has a talk with him after Ross steps down from the presidency. I like it. It works, and I think it works, and I think it makes for a very compelling story. So when it comes down to it, while I do believe the film has its fair share of problems that do kind of hold it back from being a great movie, it's not a bad movie either. Like with Thor: Love and Thunder, there's a lot holding the film back. But I do believe the positives outweigh the negatives and do make it something worth watching. It's just that unlike Love and Thunder, which the parts that didn't work were a lot more egregious and definitely were a lot more distracting, the stuff that's wrong with Brave New World is not egregious. It's just there, and while it does hinder the film somewhat, it doesn't hinder it enough for it to be bad in my opinion. It's just distracting, and it can take you out of the film, but I think the positives do make up for the negatives at least somewhat, and do result in me giving the film a bit of a shaky thumbs up. Do I think it's the best Captain America movie? God, no. In fact, I dare say I sadly think it's the weakest of the Captain America movies, but I don't think it's a bad film. In fact, if I have to rank all the Captain America movies, I put Winter Soldier at the top, then Civil War, then First Avenger, and then this movie. And then I'm doing that under the impression that I don't think any of them are bad, including Brave New World. Like I said, while the flaws are a lot more prevalent and can hold it back, I think the positives do make up for it, and while I don't think that you will go into this film and say, oh, this was the greatest thing ever, I don't think your time would be wasted if you decided to check it out. It's got its fair share of problems, but at the end of the day, I do think it's at least worth a watch. And I think if you temper your expectations, you may find yourself having a somewhat good time, so. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. If you're able to get through the video, I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and while next week we'll be going back to Xiaolin Showdown, the next time we venture back into the MCU, we'll be taking a look at Marvel's answer to DC's Suicide Squad as we take a look at Thunderbolts! Asterisk.